Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to today's press interaction on President of India's state visit to Kingdom of Belgium and Republic of Turkey. Let me first introduce my colleagues on the dais. On my right is Mr. P.S. Raghavan, Special Secretary Administration. To his right is Mr. Venu Rajamani, Press Secretary to the President. To his right is Mr. Rahul Chhabra, Joint Secretary, Central Europe. To my left is Nutan Kapoor Mahawar, Director, Europe West. Let me now request Special Secretary Administration to brief you on the visit.
Thank you, Vishwadeep. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I think this, you can hear it already. Pretty, as Vishwadeep said, the President of India, Shri Pranab Mukherjee, will be paying a state visit to Belgium on 2nd to 5th October and to Turkey from 5th to the 8th. As far as Belgium is concerned, this will be the first visit by an Indian president to Belgium. It will also be the first state visit hosted by His Majesty King Philip of Belgium since his accession to the throne in July 2013. The President will be accompanied by a high-level delegation, which includes the Minister of Shipping, members of Parliament, senior officials, of course, and Vice-Chancellors of some major Indian universities. To very briefly run through the program in Belgium first, the President will arrive in Brussels on the evening of 2nd October. There will, of course, be a ceremonial welcome at Egmont Palace. Egmont Palace is something like a Hyderabad house. On the morning of 3rd October, he will jointly chair delegation-level talks with the Belgian Prime Minister. He will be visiting the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies of Belgium. In the evening, he'll address the Indian community at a reception hosted by the ambassador. He will, of course, meet with His Majesty King Philip, and who will host a lunch for him at the Royal Palace. The highlight of the President's visit to Belgium is the inauguration of Europalia India 2013-14. The President would be inaugurating it jointly with His Majesty King Philip in the evening of 4th of October. The Europalia Festival is organized by Europalia International, of which the patron is the King of Belgium. It's partly funded by the EU and by the Belgian government. India is the partner country for 2013-14 for this prestigious biennial function. And the dates are 4th of October to 26th of January 2014. The Europalia India Festival will include over 300 events showcasing Indian art and antiquities, music and dance performances, cinema, theatre, literature, philosophy, as well as cuisine, and will be hosted at multiple venues in Belgium, France, and Netherlands. The Europalia Festival is held every 2 years, and it comprises a grouping of artistic and cultural events through a multidisciplinary program. It is a festival organized primarily in Belgium, but also with some of the neighboring countries. Recent festivals showcased Russia, China, and Brazil, and this year it will be India. Coming to bilateral relations between India and Belgium, they've been cordial and very close. We've had a totally trouble-free relationship. The importance that both sides attach to our relationship can be seen from the series of high-level visits that have taken place in the past. The King of the Belgians, the then King of the Belgians, visited India in November 2008. The Belgian Prime Minister came here in 2006. Our Prime Minister was in Brussels in October 2010. Of course, that was in the context of the India-EU summit. His Majesty King Philip, in his capacity as the Crown Prince, has been in India on 4 economic missions in 1995, 1998, 2005, and 2010. And in the last one of them, in 2010, he was accompanied by an 82-member delegation of officials, captains of industry, and Belgian businessman. In fact, the visit of the Crown Prince of Belgium to India leading an economic mission has become a traditional event. And this year, since the Crown Prince Philip has now become King Philip, his sister, Her Royal Highness Princess Astrid, would be leading the economic mission to India next month. There has been all-round progress in bilateral cooperation between India and Belgium through economic and commercial ties, and increased interaction in education, science and technology, culture, and people-to-people relations. The two countries work closely together in the international arena as well. Belgium has been supportive of India on issues of particular importance to us, especially in the context of our claims for permanent membership of the UN Security Council. In fact, Belgium was one of the co-sponsors of the G4 resolution in the UNGA. It has also been supportive of creating an exception for India in the NSG. As we all know, Belgium plays a very important role within the EU, and Brussels actually also houses a number of EU and other multilateral institutions. In our bilateral relations, as I already mentioned, the main focus has been trade and economic relations. Belgium is in fact the second largest trading partner of India in the European Union, after Germany, with a bilateral trade turnover of about 15.55 billion in 2012-13. The figure in fact had reached US dollars 17.5 billion a year ago. Because of the general recessionary trends in Europe, there has been a small drop in the bilateral trade this year. Much of the bilateral trade, about 75%, is in the gems and jewelry sector. And there is a need, we feel the need to diversify our trade to include other sectors where we do have comparative advantages. So we are looking at areas like ICT, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, and automotive parts. Belgian investments in India have also been on the rise in recent times. Over the last 12-year period, it has touched about $500 million. Of course, we agree, both India and Belgium agree, that there is tremendous potential for further investments, particularly in infrastructure areas such as railway, energy, ports, construction, and so on, and also in ICT areas, electronics, software, and biotechnology. Particularly, the bilateral cooperation in science and technology has been an important aspect of our relationship. Space technology, nuclear science, and astronomy are particular areas of interest. Belgium has advanced technologies for nuclear energy generation, nuclear waste disposal, and management. There is an agreement that BARC, Bhabha Atomic Energy Research Center, and its Belgian counterpart have signed in 2012, covering cooperation in the management of nuclear waste, advanced research reactor systems, and collaboration in connection with IAEA projects. Indian population in Belgium, about 18,000 persons of Indian origin, of whom roughly half are Indian citizens. We have Indian students in Belgian universities pursuing courses of research, of education in engineering, medicine, basic sciences, and economics. Academic exchanges are building between the two countries, and I mentioned the President's delegation includes vice-chancellors of major Indian universities. They are in touch with counterpart universities, and we hope that they tie up useful arrangements in the course of this visit. Coming to Turkey, after a state visit to Belgium, the President would be visiting Turkey from October 5 to the evening of October 7th. This would be the third visit by an Indian President to Turkey. The previous two had been by Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma in 1993 and Sri K.R. Narayanan in September 1998. Arriving in, to give brief details of the program, arriving in Istanbul in the morning of October 5, conferred an honorary doctorate by Istanbul University, a visit to Cappadocia on the next morning, where he meets the governor. Arrival at Ankara on 6th afternoon, the President will address the Indian community. lay a wreath at the mausoleum of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, received by the President of Turkey. Foreign Minister will call on the President, and the President of Turkey will host a banquet in honor of the President. Turkey and India, as I'm sure you know, are linked by historical bonds of civilization, philosophy, culture, and language. The historical connections start with the exchange of diplomatic missions between the Ottoman sultans and the Muslim rulers of the subcontinent in the year 1481-82. We have, as a result of these interactions, a great cultural overlap. I have a statistic here which says that there are about 9,500 words which are common in Hindustani and the Turkish language. The Urdu language, the name of Urdu language, can be traced back to the Turkish language. Among the common elements in our cultural traditions is the Ottoman architect Mimar Yusuf, who came to India and entered the service of Akbar. And he is reputed to have had a hand in the buildings of Agra and Delhi, especially the Taj Mahal. We know, of course, about the Sufi philosophy of Maulana Rumi, which had a resonance with India's own traditions of Sufism. As in the case of Belgium, we've had a number of high-level visits exchanged between Turkey and India. The Prime Minister of Turkey, Prime Minister Erdogan, visited India in 2008. The President, Abdullah Gül, visited us in February 2010. Our own Vice President visited Turkey in October 2011. And our External Affairs Minister was there very recently in July 2013. We, of course, recognize the geographical and geopolitical importance of Turkey as a strong, democratic, and economically growing nation at the crossroads of Asia and Europe. Turkish leaders have noted the democratic ideals of India, the secular nature of its polity, its emerging economy, and our position in regional and international politics. In the economic and commercial area, we see Turkey as among our important partners in the region. Two-way trade touched US dollars 7.25 billion in 2011. There's been a slight dip in the next 2 years, and that again is because of the recessionary trends in Europe. But we see the headline trend in trade as in the upward direction. In fact, we'd set a target as far back as in 2008, when our trade was only $3 billion. We had set a target of 5 billion by 2010, which, as you see, we have surpassed easily. More than 100 Indian companies have registered businesses in Turkey, with investments in areas ranging from infrastructure and automobiles to IT and consultancy services. Prominent Indian companies with a presence in Turkey include GMR, which won a bid for construction of the Istanbul airport, Tata Motors, Mahindra & Mahindra, Reliance, Aditya Birla Group, Ispat, TAFE, Wipro, Dabur India, etc., etc. Turkish companies also have a presence in India in the infrastructure and oil and petrochemical sectors. We have a joint commission on trade and economic cooperation, which is co-chaired by the commerce ministers of the two countries. A meeting of this joint commission is due, perhaps later this year or early next year. We have an agreement for avoidance of double taxation, an agreement for protection and promotion of investments. As in the case of Belgium, cooperation in the cultural and education sectors have been particularly vibrant in recent years. Again, the high-level delegation of academicians who will be on the President's delegation hope to establish connections and arrangements with their counterpart universities in Turkey. Indian culture, films, dance, yoga, Ayurveda, and Indian cuisine have been very popular in Turkey. ISRO launched Turkey's first nano satellite on a PSLV vehicle in September 2009. Indian nationals, not a very large number. There are only about 200 Indian nationals in Turkey. Most of them are in Istanbul, working in commercial organizations. India and Turkey are members of the G20. Turkey, incidentally, is the only Eurasian country which is a member of NATO. We are both countries which see ourselves as victims of international terrorism. A joint statement against terrorism was issued when President Abdullah Gül visited India in February 2010. We believe that the President's visit will provide an added impetus and momentum towards consolidation and strengthening of the broad-based, multifaceted and comprehensive partnership both with Belgium and with Turkey. So this is what I would call an opening statement. We'd of course be happy to field questions. I'd like to request the Press Secretary to the President, Mr. Rajamani Venu, to add to what I say.
Thank you, sir. I think
Should be Venu Rajamani.
Venu Rajamani. Thank you. Good evening, friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be back here in MEA and to be interacting with all of you. The Secretary has given a very comprehensive description of the state of bilateral relations and set the context for the visit. I would just like to add a few points on behalf of the President. The President of India is greatly looking forward to his forthcoming state visits to Belgium and Turkey. Both the countries are familiar to him, and he has visited them many times in the past. The President's last visit to Belgium was in his capacity as External Affairs Minister, when he went for a conference of the Indian heads of missions to the European Union member states on May 30, 2007. His last visit to Turkey was in his capacity as Finance Minister, when the annual meetings of the IMF and World Bank were held in Istanbul on October 3 to 5, 2009. The President has not visited Ankara before, so this would be the first time he would be visiting the capital city of Turkey. The leadership of both Belgium and Turkey are familiar to the President. He has interacted with them, the present King of Belgium, as well as his father, the previous king, on the occasion of their previous visits to India. He has also interacted with the Turkish leadership, both the President and Prime Minister, during their visits to India. The President attaches the highest importance to India's relations with Belgium and Turkey. He has very carefully chosen a delegation comprising the Minister of Shipping, Mr. G.K. Vasan, and 5 members of Parliament to accompany him from different political parties. The members of Parliament are, I think, 4 from the Congress, 1 from BJP and 1 from the Biju Janata Dal. They span both the Lok Sabha as well as the Rajya Sabha. There's a mixture of men and women, and there is an emphasis on youth. If you look at the whole delegation, you will all have opportunities to meet them and interact with them during those who are traveling with the President during the course of the tour. As has been already mentioned by the Secretary, the President is taking with him an education delegation, which includes the Chairman of the UGC as well as Vice Chancellors of leading universities of India, the Delhi University, the Jawaharlal Nehru University, the University of Hyderabad, the Director of the Center for Media and Governance, Jamia Millia Islamia. The decision to take this delegation is in line with the emphasis the President has placed within the country on improving the quality of higher education and the need for Indian universities to establish global linkages for mutual benefit. Many of you might recall that the President had convened a conference of Vice Chancellors of Central Universities in the Rashtrapati Bhavan after a gap of almost 10 years and announced that he would be doing it every year. A conference of directors of NITs, National Institutes of Technologies, of which, like Central Universities, the President is the visitor, is also scheduled to be held in the Rashtrapati Bhavan this November. So the President hopes that cooperation in higher education can emerge as an important pillar of our partnership with both these countries, both Belgium and Turkey. The President is particularly happy that India's largest festival of culture abroad in recent years is going to be inaugurated jointly by the King of Belgium and himself as part of the Europalia Festival. He hopes this festival will offer the Belgian people a glimpse into the uniqueness of Indian culture. It would be a journey into India's past through the prism of the present. He hopes the festival will greatly help expand understanding and cooperation between the two countries and be a catalyst for greater people-to-people contacts. The President hopes to use the opportunity of this visit to hold wide-ranging discussions with the King of Belgium as well as the Belgian Prime Minister on all aspects of our bilateral relationship and to examine how the relationship can be provided significant new impetus, especially in the economic and commercial fields. The President views Turkey as a country, as mentioned by Secretary, with whom India has had historic and civilizational links. Turkey's War of Independence and the life and message of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk was an inspiration for India's national movement. The President sees his visit to Turkey as an opportunity to inject new dynamism into the relationship, to renew high-level political contacts, and to encourage Turkish participation and investment in Indian infrastructure. He would also, in particular, like to encourage joint collaboration between Indian and Turkish companies in areas like Afghanistan and Central Asia. Thank you. I'd be happy to take any additional questions you may have.
The Secretary has gracefully consented to take few questions. Please.
To clarify, the questions should only be on the President's visit to these two countries.
Mr. Raghavan, in India, the President is the head of state, whereas the Prime Minister, head of government, whereas the Prime Minister is the head of state. So when, I beg your pardon, yeah, head of government, head of state, you know what I'm talking about. When our President goes abroad, and when the Prime Minister goes abroad, is there any difference between the kind of importance attached by the host governments to an Indian head of state and an Indian head of government? And what are the diplomatic nuances involved in that? Thank you.
I think your question relates to the Constitution of India. It doesn't relate to relations with other countries. You know, the Constitution of India gives the President of India a position. The Constitution of India gives the Prime Minister of India a position. It's well defined. And other countries, when they receive the Prime Minister of India or the President of India, deal with it in terms of this. And this is not unique either. I mean, it's a similar, many countries have a similar constitution with relations between the head of state and head of government. So, I mean, for the rest, I don't see how I can answer your question.
If you want, I can just add one small point. If you look at the nature of the delegation, the President always travels abroad with as Minister of the Government, along with him, accompanying him. And that is to reflect the fact that the government is totally with him and he has a representative of the government assisting him and aiding him in his discussions. And, of course, the fact that he takes a parliament delegation with members from different political parties indicates that he is there as representative of the whole country, of the entire political spectrum. And in that sense, he interacts with his counterparts wherever he goes as the head of state, as the designation of his position itself is reflected. The Ministry of External Affairs equally provides support to the President and Prime Minister on all visits abroad. As you can see, and the diplomatic agenda rarely differs. It is all the important issues which need to be discussed are discussed during the President's visit, and all important issues which others have to raise with us are also raised during the President's visit. And at all times, like on all issues of national importance, on foreign policy too, there is very close communication between the President and Prime Minister at all times.
Again, as laid down in the Constitution of India.
Indeed.
Sir, this is just for one clarification that if you can give us the name of the member of the Parliament, and as Minister of Shipping is also accompanying the President as a minister in waiting, or there will be anything related to shipping will be discussed there, or any MU or any agreement is likely to be signed?
Yeah, I have the names. Yeah, the minister, you know, is Mr. G.K. Vasan. There is Dr. Prabhakar Kore, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha from the BJP. There is Mr. Vaishnab Parida, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha from the Biju Janata Dal. There is Priya Sunil Dutt, Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha, Congress. there is Mr. Deependra Singh Hooda, Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha Congress, and Mr. Jafar Ali Naqvi, Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha Congress. On the shipping,
Well, it is traditional, as Mr. Venu said, it is traditional for the government to be represented by a minister. And of course, shipping is one of the areas where there will be interaction. I don't think there's going to be an agreement on shipping, but it is an area which is of bilateral interest to both countries vis-a-vis India. Shipping, not in shipping. In other areas, you see, as I mentioned, the Indian universities and the UGC, they are going to be interacting with a number of agencies in their counterpart universities and institutions there. And we hope that they will work out some arrangements which may result in some, but this is something that as we reach there, we will be better aware of.
Yeah, myself, Osman, from Turkey, Cihan News Agency representative and Zaman Group Media Group representative in India. My question to Mr. Venu is, you talked about Afghanistan and Central Asia is important geographical locations for both Turkey and India. As far as Afghanistan is concerned, in 2014, the international forces are withdrawing from Afghanistan. So the Turkish forces may remain there as a soldier, military power in Afghanistan. And India has a huge investment in Afghanistan. And as both the presidents of Turkey and India are the former foreign ministers, what kind of meetings are going to take regarding Afghanistan? And as Central Asia is a source of energy for both of the countries, I would like to learn the details of the meetings regarding that. And another question I would like to ask is about the civil aviation. As we know that Turkish Airlines has applied for the expansion of the agreements.
well, I think as far as Afghanistan and Central Asia are concerned, Afghanistan in particular, clearly India and Turkey share a lot of common interests in ensuring that there is peace, there is stability, there is political continuity, and the environment for economic progress and development. As you mentioned, India has very major investments in Afghanistan. We have very major interests in Afghanistan. Similarly, Turkish forces are going to stay back. Turkey has maintained an active interest in what is happening in Afghanistan. So it is an area where there is scope for India and Turkey to work together, as particularly in the private sector, where in Turkish companies are big in infrastructure globally. We are welcoming their participation in India. There are a large number of Indian companies in Turkey. The Secretary had mentioned that in his briefing. So all this offer ideal grounds for much greater collaboration between the two countries. Certainly this would be a very important topic of discussions. Similarly, Central Asia is an area which in many ways binds both our countries together. It has always bound us together historically and culturally. Here again, there would be great scope for both of us to work together, and these are issues which would come up in the discussions when the president is there and when he meets the leadership of Turkey. I think what emerges from the discussions is something which can be talked about only after the meetings are actually held.
On civil aviation, these are actually commercial discussions that is going on between the airlines of both countries. And it's all I can say at the moment is that these discussions are ongoing. I cannot tell you whether something will happen during the president's visit, but as I said, this is primarily a commercial discussion that is going on between the Turkish Airlines and its counterpart in India.
Sorry, add to that, irrespective of the discussions between the two airlines, what is indisputable and what both countries agreed on is the need for much greater connectivity between the countries. We need much more flights between the countries. We would like to have greater number of tourists from Turkey visiting India, from India visiting Turkey. And considering the history that we share and the commonalities and culture that we share, we need to have much greater movement of people between the two countries, and better airline connections are an absolutely critical ingredient for making sure that that happens.
This way. Yeah, it is Iftikhar Gilani, DNA newspaper. My question is that if the fulcrum of power in the Islamic world has now moved away from Saudi Arabia and Pakistan to Turkey and Iran now, and the West has been always wary of this kind of a combination historically. In what way actually it helps India, and in what way actually it means what it means for India? And another question is that we have been quite wary about and have been quite very very sensitive about the Chinese presence in POK, but we have never been seen. There is a heavy Turkish presence also in the POK. They have actually who built the new city of Muzaffarabad after the earthquake, and they are quite very actively involved in the Kashmiri refugee camps even also in the POKs. But it had never raised our hackles anyway.
I think even by a large stretch of the imagination, you cannot say that this deals with the president's visit to Turkey and Belgium. And the role of Islam, the fulcrum of Islam, these are all very large questions which are the subject of debate in other fora, and I don't want to get into it here. So really, I mean, I don't see why we should dwell on these subjects at this press briefing.
If there are no other questions, we come to the end of this press briefing. Thank you.